Have you ever lived with someone who made you question your own reality? One day they love you. The next day, they punish you with silence. One moment, you are their world. The next, you are the problem. And somehow, no matter what happens, you are always the one apologizing. If this sounds familiar, you may not just be living with a difficult person. You may be living with someone with strong narcissistic traits. And the hardest part? They may never admit it. But today, we are not here to diagnose them. We are here to protect you. Because living with a narcissist is not just stressful. It can slowly make you forget who you are. And by the end of this video, you will understand how to survive emotionally, how to stop getting pulled into their games, and the one mistake you must never make if you want to keep your peace. Living with a narcissist can feel like living inside a storm that only you can see. To everyone else, they may seem charming, funny, successful, generous, even loving. But behind closed doors, everything changes. The criticism starts, the mood swings begin, the guilt trips become normal, and little by little, you begin walking on eggshells. You stop saying what you really feel. You stop asking for what you need. You start studying their face, their voice, their silence, trying to predict what version of them you are going to get today. And that is where the trap begins. Because the longer you live like this, the more you adapt to their chaos. Instead of asking why there is chaos in the first place, the first thing you must understand is painful. You cannot win a fair conversation with someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. A narcissistic person often does not enter conflict to understand. They enter conflict to defend their ego. So when you say, "You hurt me," they hear, "You are attacking me." When you say, "I need respect," they hear, "You think you are better than me." When you say, "Please stop," they hear, "I am losing control." And suddenly the conversation is no longer about what they did. It becomes about your tone, your timing, your past mistakes, your emotions, your reaction. This is how you get pulled into the maze. You start explaining, then defending, then apologizing. And by the end, you are exhausted, confused, and somehow responsible for everything. So the first rule is this: stop trying to make them fair. Start making yourself clear. Do not over-explain. Do not beg them to understand. Do not argue with someone who keeps moving the goalpost. Say what you mean. Say it calmly. Then step back. Because the more you explain, the more material they have to twist. And this next part is where many people lose themselves without even realizing it. When you live with someone who constantly denies, minimizes, or rewrites what happened, you begin to doubt yourself. They may say, "I never said that." "You are too sensitive." "You always exaggerate." "You are crazy." "No one else would put up with you." And if you hear that long enough, something frightening happens. You begin to believe them. This is why protecting your reality is not optional. It is survival. Write things down. Keep notes of important conversations. Save messages. Talk to one trusted person who knows the truth. Not because you are trying to build a case, but because you need an anchor. You need something outside of their version of the story. Because narcissistic behavior often works by slowly separating you from your confidence. First, you doubt your memory. Then you doubt your feelings. Then you doubt your worth. And once you doubt yourself, they do not have to control you as much. Because you start controlling yourself for them. You stop speaking up. You stop resisting. You stop expecting kindness. And that is exactly why the next step matters so much. When people hear the word boundaries, they imagine a big, dramatic speech. But with a narcissistic person, big emotional speeches often backfire. They may use your words against you. They may mock you. They may accuse you of being selfish. They may suddenly become the victim. So your boundaries need to be simple, calm, and consistent. Not dramatic, not emotional, not long. For example, I will not continue this conversation if you insult me. If you raise your voice, I am leaving the room. I am not discussing this while we are both angry. I need space right now. But here's the part most people miss. A boundary is not what you ask them to do. A boundary is what you will do if the behavior continues. Because you cannot control whether they yell. But you can control whether you stay in the room. You cannot control whether they insult you. But you can control whether they get access to your attention, and they may test you. They may push harder. They may say, "Wow, now you think you are better than me?" They may accuse you of being cold. They may call you dramatic, but that does not mean your boundary is wrong. It means your boundary is working. And this is where you have to be very careful. Because there is one emotional trap that pulls people back in again and again. This may be the most heartbreaking part. Many people do not stay because the narcissistic person is cruel all the time. They stay because sometimes that person is wonderful. They can be loving, charming, funny, warm. They may apologize. They may cry. They may promise change. They may become the person you always hoped they would be. And for a moment you think, there they are. That is the real them. If I just love them better, maybe this version will stay. But then the pattern returns, the criticism, the blame, the coldness, the control, and you are left grieving someone who appears and disappears in the same body. That is what makes it so addictive. You are not just attached to who they are, you are attached to who they sometimes become. But you cannot build a peaceful life around someone's occasional kindness. You have to look at the pattern, not the promise. The pattern tells the truth, and if the pattern keeps breaking you, then the good moments are not enough to heal the damage. This does not mean you have to hate them. It does not mean you have to become cruel. It means you must stop abandoning yourself every time they become charming again. Because the next thing you need to do is not about changing them, it is about getting yourself back. When you live with a narcissist, your world can become very small. Their mood becomes the weather. Their approval becomes oxygen. Their anger becomes the emergency. But your life has to become bigger than their reactions. Reconnect with people, even if it feels embarrassing, even if you have been isolated, even if you do not know how to explain what has happened. Start small. Text one friend. Visit one family member. Join one group. Talk to one therapist, counselor, or support line. You need mirrors that are not distorted by their ego. You need people who remind you that you are not crazy. You need places where you can breathe. And if you are financially dependent, emotionally trapped, or afraid to leave, begin quietly building options. Save money if you can. Gather important documents. Know where you could go in an emergency. Learn what support exists in your area. Because sometimes living with a narcissist is not about making the relationship better. Sometimes it is about staying safe until you can make a bigger decision, and that brings us to the part nobody wants to hear. But everyone needs to know. The biggest mistake you can make is believing that if you suffer enough, they will finally understand your pain. You may think, if they see me cry, they will stop. If I explain it perfectly, they will get it. If I love them harder, they will soften. If I become easier to love, they will treat me better. But your suffering is not a strategy. Your silence is not peace. Your endurance is not proof of love. And losing yourself will not save the relationship. It will only teach them that your pain has no consequence. So stop measuring your strength by how much you can tolerate. Start measuring it by how much truth you can face. The truth may be that they are not ready to change. The truth may be that they benefit from the way things are. The truth may be that you have spent years waiting for empathy from someone who only offers it when they are afraid of losing control. And yes, that truth hurts. But it also frees you. Because once you stop trying to rescue their potential, you can finally start rescuing yourself. So how do you live with a narcissist? You stop playing by rules that only protect their ego. You protect your reality. You set boundaries. You stop chasing the good version of them. You rebuild your support system. And most importantly, you remember that you are a person too. Your feelings matter. Your peace matters. Your voice matters. You were not born to be someone's emotional punching bag. You were not created to spend your life proving that you deserve basic respect, and even if they never change, you still can. You can become calmer, stronger, clearer, freer, one choice at a time. And maybe the most powerful thing you will ever say is not shouted in an argument. Maybe it is whispered quietly to yourself, I am not crazy. I am not powerless. And I am not losing myself anymore. If this video spoke to something you have been carrying silently, leave a comment with the word peace, not to explain your story, not to prove anything, just as a reminder to yourself that peace is still possible. And if you know someone who is living in confusion, guilt, or emotional exhaustion, share this video with them. Because sometimes one video can be the first mirror that tells someone, you are not imagining it, and you are not alone.